Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 1 finale of Viral Hit. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off. The fight between Mengi and Hoban is about to start off, and Hoban's trying to go in with his normal tactics, and his calf kick doesn't do anything. Normally, up until this point in time, even though it doesn't seem like it's doing any damage, it usually stacks. Because usually it's like, okay, like enough calf kicks does enough damage, but the problem is that Serum wrestlers are meant to keep themselves still inside of a ring, so to not be moved. So yeah, like his legs are going to be thicker and stronger because he's always going to be ready to stand his ground. So none of Hoban's tactics are working. That's not going to work. His punch doesn't work. His like overhead punch doesn't work. His attempt to do like the baseball choke doesn't work either. So all his tactics up until now haven't worked. They never really explain it, but I assume like him trying to basically get Mengi to run into his fist or hand didn't work because he himself doesn't have the, like, if he had a stronger probably body and core, it probably would do some damage having Mengi run into him like that. But it's like, right, the weight differences probably like nullified at least some of that damage. Even though he's running at you, it's still that weight difference does make a lot of difference, you know, and it's also you're not knocking him off balance at all. This is where Hoban starts utilizing his new tactic, which is running away, which the comments are like, well, here we go again. Because every time things don't go his way in a fight pretty early on, Hoban will start running away. At least this time he's running away backwards, but Snapper's like, oh, I see what he's doing. This way he's able to keep an eye on his opponent. It's going to be fine. And that's when he tried to do the tactic of like hitting him, but it didn't work. And the baseball choke didn't work. And obviously Mengi like keeps referencing like, yo, like, don't touch my head, which Hoban's like, what's that all about? But Hoban ends up getting grabbed and tossed, and it seemed like it's over because obviously you have a ring versus like straight up concrete, which is what Hoban's being thrown into. But everyone's like, whoa, Mengi didn't have to go so hard in the paint, like doesn't know how to control himself. Everyone thought Hoban was dead. This is exactly why Snapper's like, I didn't want you to do this fight. But it turns out, hey, he had a spine protector on. He still took some of that damage, but it's just like how he protected himself against Taehoon's back kick. So it's kind of a similar thing, but it's like, yeah, that back protection's gone now, so you still got pretty banged up from the one, even with that like back protection. But he grabs you again and tosses you. It's over. So this is when he starts utilizing the technique that he learned from Taehoon. Like the running backwards is part of that training for the back kick. Because I guess it's like, right, to kind of give you some more space so you can like wind up, because there is a big enough wind up for the back kick. So at the same time, we're cutting back to Taehoon, who's watching all of this, and we see a flashback for him, like why he's so adamant about Taekwondo being the best is because obviously the dojo that they run, is run by his dad, but now they have to rent it out to little kids coming here to do homework. Like they're doing a little Taekwondo studying, but you don't have like full-blown paying students for it. So a lot of the prestige is going because MMA has kind of has swooped, because like Taekwondo is seen as so like traditional and doesn't seem like it has any like real world practicality, unlike MMA can be used both in the ring and outside the ring. It has practicality in both ways. That's where Taehoon is coming from. And seeing that moment where he kind of breaks down, he's like, you promised me that you wouldn't give up, Dad, and I worked hard. I got first place, and what are you doing? You gave up. He's like, fine, I'm going to prove that Taekwondo can beat MMA, and that's what kind of sent him on his journey. So it kind of lets you get a little insight into Taehoon to understand like his attitude on things. Once again, we're only getting a fraction to it because there's still a lot more to Taehoon's circumstances. There's a lot more to his past that we haven't covered yet that won't be covered until, like, if there's a potential second season, which I'll talk about at the end of this. It probably won't get covered until something like that. So it is a situation of, it's just, you see what it stems from. It stems from this pride and ownership he has of Taekwondo, and he wants people to recognize how amazing it is because of what it means to him, and he wants it to mean the same way to other people. He doesn't want people looking down on Taekwondo, especially considering it's something to his family. It's like, right, his dad's a teacher, he himself is a practitioner of it, so And that's what kind of like leads into, like I said, it plays into his nasty attitude, but like I said, there's other elements to that as well. So it's like now you can understand why he strives so hard, and why when he lost to Moonseong, like why it broke him to the point that he ended up leaving. So there's layers to that even in this little bit, you're understanding Taehoon's character a little bit more of like, okay, why one single loss? I mean, a loss can shake any fighter across any martial arts. But like why it struck him to his core, because there was so much weight behind him being a Taekwondo fighter, kind of squashing everyone until he went up against Museong, and it was such a crushing defeat on so many levels of what it meant of like, okay, MMA beat out Taekwondo. Like, all that people say about Taekwondo is true, you know. So it like I said, I keep saying, just there's so much to it in that moment. And the only reason why Hobin won, you're supposed to aim for like what's the solar plex or whatever, and he ended up going for Mungi's nuts. And it's like, well, going for the crotch isn't, I mean, it's not an official match. It's a, because everyone's like, ooh, that's an apology incoming. They're like, whoa, that was, everyone's like, ooh, oh. It's like, yeah, that's kind of cheap. That's super messed up. Don't do that. But it's like, yeah, it's a fight. It's a street fight. So it seems like Hobin might have come out on top until Mangi grabs him again. It's like, yep, it's over if he hits the pavement. So I got to grab for anything. And we get the Mungi reveal, which I think it's so interesting. They don't show it. They kind of hide it a little bit, which I think is so interesting. I find that so fascinating because like I said, they don't showcase that at all. Because I feel like in the webtoon, like you outwardly, like they spend time, like you get panels of like Mungi, like his situation is he's balding. Like he's massively balding in the middle, and he's got like hair growing up on the sides. But yeah, he wears like a toupee. And this is where you get to realize like, oh, Mangi's not a bad guy. And I love that. Like, I love that that's the resolution to this fight. It's not like Hobin technically won. It's just kind of like, yeah, he survived their rematch and kind of won, but kind of gained a friend and understanding of Mangi even more. But basically, it's like, yeah, he's like, he always thought like, right, being strong would get girls' attentions, and that's all he wants. He wants a girlfriend. Basically, before all his hair goes away, he thinks like, if I need to, like, basically I need to lock a girlfriend down before I go completely bald or whatever, because then, like, she's kind of stuck with me type of situation. But it's like, yeah, if all my hair goes before then, I'm doomed for the rest of my life. I'm always going to be part of this single club for life. So, and then you see him just like popping like hair growth supplements like they're Tic Tacs. He just keeps popping them. It's like probably not a good idea to be taking that many all at once. I'm sure there's probably limitations. Oh yeah, take these over a certain amount of hours. But yeah, like he's also following like a dating guide book of like, oh yeah, this pickup artist, which once again, kind of with the whole conversation of YouTube, so just like the prank video stuff is like, it's so outside of my algorithm, I don't see it. The pickup artist stuff, which once again, over a decade back, you see that a lot on YouTube. I feel like I don't see it, but once again, it doesn't say it's not there or on TikTok or some other social media. It's just it never enters my orbit because it's like, I watch like video game and like music related stuff and like some comedy stuff, like, so like that never like permeates my algorithm. So, but it's like, yeah, he's following like a book. It's like, yeah, this guy, he's got 10,000, like he's been on 10,000, dated 10,000 women or whatever, and he's giving them all this advice about how, once again, he's the one that's like, oh, women want a guy that's strong. And like, he's just so heartbroken thinking it's all over. And Hobin, it's like, wow, Mangi's like actually a really good guy. It's like, Hobin understands that more than anything, like where him and Boomy are, and it's kind of like, oh, like things are good. But it's like, this is where you go like, wow, like, you see there's layers to Taehoon, but Taehoon's still a piece of shit. But, like I said, there's understandable elements to him. We just haven't gotten to storyline-wise, but he's still kind of an asshole. Mangi, at this moment, you're like, oh, like, you feel severely like... That's why I think it's so interesting, because, like, against everyone Hobin's ever going up against, everyone else has been a dick. Like, Paco, like, unredeemable. Like, yeah, he's a dick. Like, I mean, even Snapper's kind of had his redemption, so... But obviously, he wasn't, like, a full opponent for... Hobin, but it's like, yeah, Taehoon still kind of a dick, but a little more understandable. Comedy Crew, they're dicks. So the guy who him and his girlfriend took Hobin's phone, like that guy's it's always like dickish people. And Mangi's kind of the first guy you're like, oh wow, he's actually a really dope dude. Could you find out the reason why he started beef with Museong is because he's like, right, he's around Bumi all the time, so he thought Museong was stalking Boomy, so it's like a complete misunderstanding. But it's kind of like, yeah, like this all was because of that dating book advice, and he's even taken winnings from his championship wins and have put it towards this. Because he was always the guy that's like, oh, like the handsome guys that are in this sport, they get to be front and center. I got to get pushed to the back because I'm fat and ugly in a lot of people's eyes. And like I said, it's not even just Hoban. Even Snapper starts crying because they all have the love life situation. Because obviously Snapper's super into Gal, but she's like completely unaware. And you know, it's just like, and just them tears pouring down their eyes is actually a really sweet, beautiful moment. And it's kind of like, oh, Monkey's like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to quit YouTube. But then it's like, nah, man, like, look at this. And there's so many people pouring out support. It's like, yo, you can't give up because you got to fight for the rest of us. He's like, dude, someone's like, dude, I've been doing this for 7 years trying to keep my hair. I don't talk about it a lot. I'm balding too. Like, you know, so like the Monkey stuff like hits home too. I'm like, hey, I feel you, homie. I feel you so hard, dude. Because like, it's like also a genetic thing because like, I think my mom's even said like, yeah, the balding kind of runs on her side of the family. So, you know, so it's like, yeah, I don't talk about it. You can easily point it out if you want to be an asshole, which there have been people who've pointed out just to be assholes, but it's like, yeah, it is what it is. I don't point it out because I'm very self-conscious about it, but I'm also a very self-conscious person about a lot of things. So it's just, topic is brought up, so I'm like, fuck it, I'll talk about it in that regard. But either way, so, but it's like, yeah, it's such a beautiful thing, and he's got so much support pouring in, and it's just like, it's really amazing. And then at that moment, they end the live stream, all three of them cheering together. It's so beautiful. Museong's watching it, Taehoon's watching it. You even see Boomy kind of distracted from work watching it. But I think it's kind of nice being like, okay, so, okay, that guy's not as bad as I thought. But I'm sure, like, you have Museong and Boomy having that same perspective of look at Hoban not just like winning, like being a complete douche. Like there's some like hope that came from this, and the fact that so many people are subscribing to. Cause we didn't get to see it. This will probably be something they showcase in the beginning, maybe next season. But Mungi like does embrace like the whole balding thing, like, and he still keeps the toupee on, but he still keeps doing his thing, but he embraces it more, and so many people are there to support him because it's like, yo, you're fighting for us, all those balding guys out there, we got your back, homie, you know. So, and even Gal editing it, they're like, oh my god, this is actually so sweet and touching. I'm like, had no ideas about this Monkey thing. It's like, how am I going to edit this? And the video does really, really well. So it kind of wraps everything up very nicely, while also teeing up some other stuff, because at one point you hear Hoban over the voiceover saying like, yeah, everything was kind of fine until they showed up. So that's setting up the next like chunk of the story, which I'll get to later. And then you see Snapper react to something. He's like, wait, what? So that's like the next, like, once again, there's an overarching arc, that's the thing, but there's like multiple arcs part of it. So like I said, I'll talk about it in a sec. But he goes to see his mom, everything's good. It's like, oh man, I'm talking to Boomy like every day. I don't have to worry about money as much. The fact of the matter is, you know, I'm almost done paying off our debt. And his mom is like, oh my god, you look so happy, you have a girlfriend, but also the debt collectors haven't been calling. He's like, oh no, part-time job I got's been doing good. And she's like, oh, maybe I can work with you when I get out. So he's like, no. He's like, but how will my mom feel if she finds out about me getting paid to get beat up? And I love that is his perspective on it. It's not like, oh, I'm waiting, well, because he also snapped out of it. I forgot to talk about that element of, he was like, yeah, I was so stupid, feeling the adrenaline. He got so ahead of himself. He's like, yeah, it feels good to fight when it's even playing field, but now I'm back to fighting monsters who outclass me. Shit. You know, so, you know, reality kind of snuck in. So that's why he's like, yeah, I'm getting paid to get beaten up. Because he's not being like, yeah, I'm coming in, I'm getting paid to thrash people. He's like, no, I get my ass whooped a lot, like severely, you know. But yeah, he doesn't want his mom to worry. And then the nurse, which I think I brought this up in episode 1. And someone in the comments, do correct me. I do believe that's the same nurse from the webtoon who was originally supposed to be a love interest for Hoban, but like I said, the writer of Viral Hit, just there was not enough time to cover. Like I said, there was multiple like people, so that's why I'm like, I wonder if that's who she's. I think that's that same character. I just can't remember off the top of my head what the nurse from the webtoon looks like, but I think that is her because I do remember her wearing glasses. So she only pops up like a little bit. That's why she's only in the story a tiny bit. I want to say like outside of this, you'll see her one more time, at least storyline wise, I can think of. Next, that might have. I think that's next season. I don't think that was. I think that was part of season 1. I don't think it was part of season 2. That might have actually been part of season 2. I can't remember. There's a flashback thing about the hospital where you learn about something that maybe Hoban doesn't remember about something related to the hospital from a few years back. That's pretty prominent and pretty important to the story when it comes to love interest conversations. I'll leave it at that. So that's one other time you see her. But like, yeah, either way. Hoban got the good news that like, oh, his mom's surgery's gonna be moved up, and it's like when she gets this surgery, she won't even have to be on dialysis anymore. Granted, it's gonna cost like $2 million, but for him, it's like, yo, all I have to do is get the money. I'll get the money. It'll be fine. He's like, my mom will be able to finally come home. We'll be able to live together again. Hell yeah, I'm all about that. So, and he's able to spread that good news to everyone. He's happy about like things are good. Talking to Boomy every day. My mom's surgery is going to come up, and he's looking, and he's also like, I'm not alone. I have my friends. And he looks, and there's Snapper and Gall, and he hugs Hoban hugs Snapper's like, yo, my mom, and Snapper's like, oh, that's great, Hoban. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of nice, parallel, like, kind of bringing that full circle a little bit from episode 5 where Snapper went to go see his mom. So it's just interesting how that all wraps up. So kind of stay on this subject, because he also let Boomy know too. I forgot about that, but staying on the subject of what the future holds for the show. At the time of me recording this, because the episode just came out today, there is no announcement currently for season 2 of the anime, but it might take time. Once again, I rarely have I've been out of the anime game for a while. I popped in here and there, but that sometimes you get those announcements early like you do regular TV shows, but I'm not always fully used to like how the anime thing works out, where it's probably like how it's like for some stuff where it's like it'll probably be like a couple months before we hear anything about whether they've greenlit a second season or not, because there is still plenty of story to tell, as I've talked about previously. I don't remember how much of the webtoon this is covering, because I've talked about it previously. Season 1 of the viral hit webtoon is like 135 chapters. I don't know how much. I don't think this covers half. This probably covers like at least. Maybe I'm misjudging the numbers. Maybe it does cover half, because I just in my head, like, the next chunk of story is so there's so much to it that maybe I'm underestimating like how much. Like, I feel like all this stuff at the beginning was like I said, my percentages might be off. It feels like this is only like a third of the story, and then the next section is like 2/3 of the season 1. But like I said, don't quote me on my numbers for that. The only thing I'm pretty sure about is like the number of chapters. Season 1 of the webtoon has, like, so because the season ends at a very interesting, specific point where you're like, oh, that's kind of an interesting spot. I mean, it makes sense, but it also is kind of an interesting spot to stop. Either way, the reason why I've talked about this, I was wondering too, like, whether or not what setup we would get for a potential season 2, and you get 2 to some extent. The only thing you get, 3 really. It's that line from Hoban being like, until they showed up. So that's set up. That's like, oh, who are this mysterious they? So there's that, and also, God, what's his Snapper's reaction when he sees something on his phone? He's like, wait, what? Because he's like, yeah, everything's gonna be fine. In fact, it matters. We keep going this trajectory. I'll be a director of a movie in like by the time I'm 20. And he sees something. Without going into like too much specifics, the next story arc is what he was reacting to, and that's the copyright situation. If you've read the webtoon, because I don't even remember the character's name, like the fake name they have. I don't even remember that off the top of my head, but I remember that revolved around copyright stuff, YouTube stuff. So that story arc is what he was reacting, because that was set up for that. But then we also, what I thought was surprising too, is they showed Pak Go. He was watching like the whole Mongi viral hit stream. So you're like, interesting. Now that is going to come back later on. That's not going to be an immediate storyline. There's going to be at least maybe 2 or 3 arcs before we get to that. Maybe that one might come up sooner than I remember it, because like the copyright thing might happen. Because I know Paco does come back, and I think I even referenced it earlier in the season of like, yeah, like we're not done with him in the story. So yeah, hopefully the show does get a second season, because The next story stuff is great. Like, that's a lot of, like, if you've never read the webtoon, which I highly recommend you do if you want to know the story, like, because on the off chance this is all we get, once again, there is still a good, like, this isn't even all of season 1 of the webtoon, so there's still all of that, plus you have a whole other season of the webtoon to read. Once again, it is shorter too. I want to say, roughly speaking, season 1 of the webtoon's roughly like 1.5 times longer than season 2, because season 2 is shorter chapter length wise. Like I said, it's like, it's probably like 80 to like 90 some chapters is what season 2 is, to my understanding. So that does kind of also put things in perspective of like, considering everything, like how big the story of the next chunk of story is. I was like, I'd assume, like, once again, I can't put the numbers in my head specific. If I remembered how much of the season 1 this season covered, I could probably better guess about, like, I'd assume all of that could be done in one season. So like all of season 2 would cover the rest of season 1 of the webtoon. So you probably only need maybe, you could squeeze. I mean, having still not finished season 2, the final season of Viral Hit, I don't know, like, whether you'd be able to probably squeeze that all into like a third season. Like, it probably would take maybe 3-4 seasons. It just depends on pacing, because maybe this, if you can finishing out the rest of season 1, I'd assume you'd be able to squeeze that into like a second season, but that might take a season 2 and 3. You know, that just depends. You know, so hopefully, like I said, I'd love to see this next chunk of the story, like the rest of season 1 animated, because it's such good storytelling. Like, the story's been like, had its dark moments so far. They've leaned into the drama, but they've heavily leaned into the comedy in a lot of ways too. The story in season 1 gets so much darker going forward. It gets really dark, and like shit really hits the fan going forward, and it just gets darker and darker as it progresses. And seeing that shit animated is going to be wild, because it's great storytelling from a dramatic, because you wouldn't expect, like, you see it has its comedic drama points as well, but like I said, it gets really dark with some of the storylines that like come up, and you know, so that's why that's why I'd be so pumped to see that animated. And just for anyone that maybe hasn't read the webtoon or has no interest in reading the webtoon, for them to have an opportunity to see the story in that light. Because some people might go like, right, I'm gonna wait to see if the show gets a second season. If it does, then I'll put off reading the webtoon. Maybe not. Like I said, to my recollection, once again, it's still been a little while since I read early Viral Hit. To my recollection, this has been a pretty faithful adaptation with some changes here and there. Nothing like story breaking or like completely different. It feels like I said, some stuff in my head I feel like might have happened in different orders, but for the most part, it seems like a pretty faithful adaptation with like the minor changes that they've done. Like I said, the only thing that immediately sticks out to my mind is how they handled Gao. Just like her popping up in person and you actually seeing her character model, like just seeing her pop up, you know, whereas like her introduction to you is through she's the old man in chat, in the Viral Hit chat, before you even see what she actually looks like in person. So, but yeah, I've kind of run my mouth off long enough. Like I said, fingers crossed, hoping we get a second season of this, because I'd love to see that get animated, and also see like what they do differently, and also just like to see what the pacing of it would be. Like, could they like get the rest of season 1 of the webtoon into second season of the show? So, but yeah, that's really all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.